All right, so I'm going to start off with showing two photos, or attempt to show a photo. So, you talk about fashion in the Soviet Union. You kind of have. I'm trying. First of all, I'm not an expert. I'm just a geek that likes to look at old clothes and make them. But this is kind of like what I have put together in my time of my 4 years of messing around with Soviet civilian stuff. One of the things you got to look at when you're looking at Soviet civilian clothing in the of the time is you've got to look at you have a vast country with umpteen different cultures. So you're going to see a lot of variation. So to kind of put it in context, leading up to the war, you have before the revolution, most of the clothing is made very regionally in at home. There isn't a whole lot of pre-made, what we would consider available garments. Most of it's cottage industry. Um, and what is kind of contemporary in keeping with the times is seen by the Bolsheviks as kind of a yet another example of class struggle. So the revolution comes, get up in Soviet society for much of the 20s. They come out of the 20s, and you're into the 30s, and now you've got a situation where clothing is rationed and clothing is, very short supply. So the government is looking at it as a necessity like bread. We have to be able to clothe and shod our citizens. So they start developing a textile base. They start developing ready-made garment factories and conglomerates to produce um, clothing for the masses. Um, while that's going on, you also have, because of the 5-year plans, you've got more of an urbanized population. People are moving from out of the countryside into population centers. So what you're seeing is kind of this really bizarre blend of, you see folks bring clothing that they know, clothing that they're comfortable with, into the cities with them from the countryside. You see the government trying to, like with all things in Soviet society, modernize. And you get to see a really interesting blend. And so when you're talking about Soviet civilian fashion, you really have to kind of look at, okay, how old am I? Where am I at? Because that's going to dictate a lot of your clothing choices. One of the things that I found really interesting is the Soviet government actually put together, particularly for women, basically traveling trade shows to go to the countryside to show off more modern, more contemporary fashions and textiles in an effort to kind of modernize clothing. To what extent it was successful, that's open for debate. Um, so you see a lot of these older styles. Hold on. There was an alternate plan behind all of this, was to also show the rest of the world the benefit of the Soviet system, right? So we've increased industrial capacity, we've increased uh, standard of living, and what better way to show that than to show how your citizens are dressed? So they start to kind of cultivate this ideal, and it's marketed to the population through fashion magazines. So I have one example. This is a woman's one from 1941, winter of 4041. So right on the eve of the war. And you take a look at it, and they're very chic modern garments, right? They're kind of in keeping with Western Europe, Poland, that area. So that's the women's version of it. And if we go down here, here's the male version of it. So the key thing to remember when you're looking at these is this is the ideal. This is what the Soviet Party would love everyone to look like. The reality is a lot more gray, as it were. Let's see. Yeah, there's a huge difference. I mean, this looks like something out of Savile Row or Moda, or not Moda, but Paris or Germany. So when we start talking about like putting an impression together, one of the questions I get is, what's the biggest mistake people make when it comes to putting an impression together? And my answer is, if you look like an American and working on the farm or in the city, you're doing it wrong. You really want to kind of go for this weird milieu of German early 30s, and even traditional, depending on what you're doing. So I'm going to give you a good example of what kind of traditional would look like in the 30s. So here we go. We got the local village out here. We've got the guy out front on who I'm guessing is some form of party apparatus. He's wearing a very I kind of think it's kind of cool. It's almost like a technical coat. You've also you've also got kind of the stereotypical peasant look going on.
Dog.
Let's see, what was the other one I wanted to show you? Here's another one. This is a good partisan shot. Again, you've kind of got a little bit of everything from telegricas to um, kind of technical jackets, dusters. You've even got some Red Army uniforms mixed in. Let's see the other one I wanted to show you. This is my favorite. This guy, he's got kind of you can tell they're kind of oversized trousers that he's cinched in with a belt, but he's got the kind of the half placket zippered shirt rolled up. Um, so when it comes to men's stuff, and kind of in the Soviet Union in general, less is more. You want more of a baggy fit to it. Um, you don't want to have a lot of vibrant colors. You want to have a lot of naturals. You want to have a lot of darker, so grays, browns, blacks, blues, kind of greens. You also want to have maybe some stuff. We're talking men. Maybe an accent piece like a striped shirt. You don't see a ton of plaids in the photos I've looked at. As far as what you want to make your stuff out of, linen is huge. Cotton is cultivated in the Soviet Union, but a lot of the garments that I've had a chance to examine, there's a ton of linen content in the fiber. Let's see. Um, Caps you want to have. You know, discussion came up on the Facebook chat today. Flat caps, kind of the call them fisherman caps. 8-panel newsboy caps are popular. Um, I would say one thing when you get into like if you're looking at doing like a workers militia or anything that's kind of near a city center, maybe that's when you want to lean a little bit towards more contemporary European fashion. But um, corduroy is another big one. The one thing you kind of want to stay away from, at least pre once Lend Lease start, is blue denim. Before World War II, that's kind of a quintessential American material. After the war, because we export a ton of it, all corners of the world, you start to see more garments in blue denim pop up. Um, Half placket shirts are big. Here's a good example of one right here. Second from the right, he's got a half placket shirt. Um, Plackets can be long, they can be short. It just depends on your personal preference. Um, but menswear, I mean, it's it's a lot easier for a male to get it right than women at times. Because even today, when you look at fashion, the fashion variety and options in terms of looks are men fairly narrow set of options. Women, it's a little bit broader than that. One thing I love about Soviet women's fashion of the time is just the absolute gaudy floral patterns that they choose. And this was done by purpose. That was a big marketing tool. Remember, I said they were sending basically trade shows out to the villages and other areas that maybe didn't have regular media to show new styles and textiles. They marketed that the colorful, vibrant colors were a tool that they worked into that. So that's a great one. Let's see what else I got here. Uh, there's a colorized one. Yeah, there's girl on the far left, you see that nice floral pattern. Reds, obviously, for obvious reasons, you see a lot of reds in women's fashion pop up. Uh, so, one thing with women, head covering. So there's kind of a very Western thing in the 1940s of women wearing hats when they're out and about. You don't see that so much in the Soviet Union. What you're more likely to see are headscarves. And if they're 25 or younger, kind of the younger generation, berets are popular, hugely popular amongst women. And it's again another one of those things you really want to take into account when you're putting your impression together is, um, how old am I? So one example, we use a male and a female example. I always get requests for, hey, I'm doing a partisan. Can I have one of the side seam placket shirts like the old Tsarist World War One style tunics? Well, if you're probably over 40, you can get away with it. I'm not saying that no one under 40 ever wore those. I will say they tend to predominate amongst older folks. Um, with women, it's kind of the same thing with the beret and the head covering. Um, if you're, 20, you can get away with a beret. If you're 50, probably not. Got some other cool female photos to show. I like doing women's stuff more than I like doing men's stuff, to be honest with you. Here's another good example of the floral patterns and polka dots. Those were big too. You see a lot of polka dot garments among women. Um, and last but not least, okay, so kind of going, you can start to see in this village that the marketing efforts on the part of the government are starting to have an impact because you're starting to see more of that colorful quasi modern clothing starting to slip in. So I felt like for my presentation, because it's such a vast subject, it'd be easier for me to answer questions and kind of give you my, what I've seen or noticed, um, as opposed to just trying to sit here and cover all of my bases. So if you guys want to ask me any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. And if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know.
Again, feel free to unmute yourselves, gentlemen.
I mean, I did. I do have one question though. It's more so because of a photograph I found a little while ago.
Hmm?
I found this photograph a little while ago, and it's kind of had me puzzled.
Take a look at that.
And the
I think
caption
this
for it's
Oh,
pretty
is
interesting.
I think this is Makui.
No, the caption reads, "Yes, the guys in the background are Maquis, but the guy with the ammo belt is said to be a Soviet."
Yeah.
hmm.
There were a
I wonder if
number
he's a
of
Ukrainian deserter.
yeah,
Because like, wasn't one of the Ukrainian SS units? Didn't they have a mutiny and bolt into the hills to join the Maquis?
yeah. A good
Yeah,
number of ROA soldiers defected to the Makui.
yeah, I would say I would say this one's been a bit interesting too for me because one, it's obviously a Soviet, and you can clearly see two of the individuals are very clearly Americans. Especially if you notice in the back, I must point out the interesting bit is you notice in the back of the helmet of the left American there,
The Ranger.
yeah, Rangers, because this is Brest in Brittany.
It's a
Yeah,
very interesting photo. There were also a lot of
yeah.
like Soviet
Sorry, just
expatriates, like people who fled from uh the Tsar or not the Tsar. Well, yes, the Tsar, but also the Russian Civil War. A lot of them resettled in France, and so a lot of their kids joined the Maquis. But you should talk to Logan Steffen about Roa and how many of them defected to the Maquis. There were entire battalions that defected.
mm,
Um,
Interesting.
Oh, I had a question. I can't think of what it was.
I seem to have destroyed your thunder.
It was more just something to add. I've been looking at a lot of pictures from like Western Ukraine as well, and the thing that you were talking about how fashion evolved from the more traditional to the more like Soviet Union themes. It's very apparent there, and you can even see a lot of like Polish pre-war city fashion kind of, or Polish
Hmm.
pre-war fashion at play in Western Ukraine. And you see a lot more plaid in the border regions than you do like in the mainland. Um, I
Right.
had somebody tell me, I don't remember if
My,
it was you or not, that plaid became popular because of so many Americans who came there in the 1930s as part of the five-year plans, like American industrialists that were hired. They came wearing plaid, and people kind of picked it up.
and that, and also I think that's where the love of denim starts too. Because you think about it, plaid flannel, blue jeans. That's the ultimate lunch pail worker outfit from the 1930s and 20s and 30s for America.
But say my cousin had all her jeans stolen in Moscow when she was there in the 80s. It's a
Yeah,
true story.
and it's another thing with civilians is there's a regular look and there's never an absolute because you can find a picture of a civilian in the Soviet Union wearing just about everything. I think at one point I said I've
Yeah.
never seen a pair of overalls or coveralls, whichever ones don't have sleeves. I've never seen a pair of those in the Soviet Union. I was watching the movie Traktoristi, tractor drivers from 1939.
Hmm.
One of the main characters is wearing a pair of overalls. So like just denim overalls. But yeah, they were pretty uncommon. Um, especially like blue jeans like we think of them today.
Hmm. Yeah. Your common, like, your go-to working man's fabrics in Europe back then are going to be like corduroy, moleskin, or even really just heavy duty cotton twill. Something that's fairly cheap to make, but can take a beating and will last a long time. Um, Doing strenuous hard labor.
I was just going to ask, so the general styles you showed off, this is generally Western Soviet Union, right?
This is
Or
so most of what I've focused on has been trying to cull photos from Western Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. I haven't really messed around too much in the Baltics or kind of that disputed area where it was Eastern Poland, then it became Western USSR. Most of what I focused on has been that general geographic area.
Yeah. Also probably aren't messing around much in like Uzbekistan, Tajikistan. It's like I've seen some pictures of
No,
their
it's
traditional
on my
clothing.
it's on my to-do list just for sheer cultural curiosity, but I haven't had a whole lot of time to dig into that.
Cool. Yeah, I think you did a good job of showing off some pretty common norms in Soviet fashion and giving people an idea of what to
I
shop
mean,
for.
the bottom line is if you're looking for just a basic civilian male living in a rural area that or out with the partisans, a half placket shirt, a pair of wide leg trousers, a flat cap of some description, or an 8-panel newsboy cap of some description, and a coat made from the material of your choice is honestly the best way to go about doing it. Oh, one other thing you do see that I forgot. The 1920s, you see a lot of what they call revolutionary fashion. So this is like everyone's got kind of that stereotypical Bolshevik late 19 teens, early 1920s look going on. So one thing you do see a lot of is the galette trousers, the kind of the same style that they're wearing in the military and the police forces. You see those pop up in villages as well.
Yeah, see a lot of pictures. I think that like a suit jacket a pair of boots and a pair of like galettes or breeches is like the muck boots, Carhartt jacket and blue jeans
Mhm.
of like America. Like that's working clothes. That's keeps you from getting caught in the brush, keeps you from sinking into the mud.
Yep. The big thing about the thing I really love about Soviet fashion is that blend of they have an unusual ability to make really basic utilitarian garments look cool. I can't really articulate it or put my finger on how, but they do. You look at some of these partisans, and it's like growing up at the tail end of the Cold War, you always kind of got the stereotype of the Soviet Union being this very gray, authoritarian, everyone dresses the same kind of mentality. And the reality is like, yeah, they've got limited clothing options just from the sheer nature of the supply available. But you look at them, and they're all wearing it in a way that lets you know that they're still determined to show you the individual that they are.
Yeah, I also love how often they just wear suits for like day-to-day work, like milking the cows or plowing the field. They're just
Yeah.
wearing a suit jacket.
What's what they
There's a
comment? I have party.
It's a very like
What's what they
1800s
comment?
there's a
mentality. Oh,
there's a great God, what's it called? Guns Against the Reich. He was an artillery officer, and he talks about before he goes to the academy in Leningrad. He talks about he got a full when he got his uniform. He was so excited because it was the first time that he'd had a matching suit of clothes his entire life. Like his entire wardrobe when he went to the academy was like a pair of pants, two shirts, two wife beaters, and a coat.
I love that photo we found, Andre, recently when we're looking at Oso stuff. The guy who's just wearing a striped shirt with a suit jacket over it.
yeah. You see like civilian telnyashki, like the striped naval shirts. You
Mhm.
do see a handful of pictures of those, just like wearing them like a formal shirt with a suit jacket over it. I've seen a few
I
pictures
think
of
my
that.
personal favorite I think my personal favorite one I found in a similar vein is a group of guys getting called up in Leningrad, and my man is sitting there wearing a pinstripe suit with a black wife beater on.
I would also like to insert a tidbit here that I had typed up earlier. Also, note for all who are attending or are planning to attend, this was a great introduction for what you should look for in order to dress properly for Occupation Rebellion, which is going to be set in June 26 through 29, 2025. And this can also be thrown in with a mix of uniform pieces in order to create a very solid, like, red partisan kit.
Yep. Because one thing I've discovered with the partisans too, not only are they flying in guns, ammo, and medical supplies, they're also flying in uniforms, and they're fabricating a lot of stuff in workshops in the forest. A lot of their cold weather gear, like telegrikas, they're getting made in house out of whatever materials they've got handy.
Yeah, the fluff in Telegrikas is the same fluff that was used in Soviet mattresses, like that batting material. So they're probably just pulling apart
Mhm.
random things and shuffling them. Yeah, but cool. Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Okay. Thank you so much, Bob, for that really
Mhm.
informative presentation. Thank you so much for showing us all these cool pictures. I know it's your personal references, so I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Oh no, everything I've so anyway, just real quick before I turn it over, I've got two or three albums on my business page of nothing but reference photos that you're all free to go through, look at, steal, post, do whatever you want with them. I put them out there so folks would have a better idea of what to look for when they're buying clothing. I can also give uh, in the chat. I can give you a couple of other companies other than me that you can get similar style clothing garments to wear for the event in June.
Cool, perfect. And yeah, this is obviously the time to plug that Bob is the Leningrad Tailor. He makes a wide variety of Soviet Union and other historical clothing. I've seen his work in person. It's really great. So if you are in the market for these kind of things, this is certainly the first person that I would point you to have custom done garments made.
I am poor.
So is every
And I'm
reenactor.
taking commissions again too.
Perfect.
All right, Andy, I think you're up.